Hello everyone, this is Hamza Mazhar Sheikh. Today we're with the fifth episode of Client Diaries. It's about a real estate business in UAE, and they reached out to us, and this is something that this case, it took place around last 6 months, and they contacted us through LinkedIn, and there were like huge talks before actually the conversion took place because there were lots of talks, they had lots of questions, and this is one of the times where we did not receive consultation payments because they were asking too much questions through WhatsApp. They were having, they took their time to trust us in terms of this business and in terms of our services. But, the biggest thing is that you have to constantly strive for these kinds of people. People take their time, business owners take their time, entrepreneurs take their time. They need time to get hold of what you do. They need time to trust you, to evaluate whether you're trustworthy enough or not, because there are lots of agencies nowadays and lots of them are lying. I've always mentioned this in my previous videos that lots of marketing and advertising agencies, they lie, that they consult businesses. They're good in their own way, but not as good as us, quite frankly. So this real estate business, it is owned by influencers. They're doing really very well. They're in the electronics business as well, and apart from this, they're in stock investments as well. But they've been doing this on an individual level. And when they wanted to start with real estate, they started with apartments and condos. And they thought that due to their following, their vast following on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, they would be able to sell lots of these. But this wasn't the case. They weren't able to sell lots of their, although the properties that they were selling, they were very good. The pricing was very good, and apart from that, they were also offering installments and property payment plans as well. But despite that, they weren't able to sell more properties, and this was one of the big issues because the properties are good, the pricing is good, the payment plan is good, the place is good, all the policies are in place, all the governmental and institutional policies are in place, and still they're not able to sell it. This was a big thing, which they were going through because they weren't able to sell most of the properties. They had sold lots of them, but not quite as much as they were expecting, and not quite up to the mark, frankly, given the current status quo of property selling and investment in UAE. So we've divided this case into four particular stages: the first, the second, and the third. And afterwards, we'll have a little bit of critical analysis regarding their business model. And I'll keep it short so that your interest doesn't, doesn't sway away. So that's the thing. So the first thing is that the idea, their ideology was that they're influencers and they'll be able to sell anything like they want. They've been able to sell electronics successfully, but this entirely wasn't based on their being influencers, because they had been doing that for quite a long time. But it was more about the idea that they had built trust over the passage of time, because it had been around 15 years since they were selling, 15 to 20 years since they've been selling electronics in UAE, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. So their idea was that, okay, we're influencers, we've got lots of following, so we'll be able to sell properties as well. But that's another ball game, and this was something that they did not quite understand in the first place. Apart from this, their content. I'll just break it down in a few moments. The first thing was that they reach. They only, when they created videos, they would only have a certain bit of reach. They would mention their UAE numbers. You can either call them or WhatsApp them. You can either call them or WhatsApp them. That's about it. There was nothing more than that. If a person is supposed to call, if they're supposed to know about your particular business, the biggest thing is that your business is supposed to have an online presence which is easily accessible, and that particular person can access it through Google or your Facebook and Instagram profiles, or through your TikTok description and bios. But they had absolutely no online presence apart from their own influencer page. They did not segregate their online presences. They did not segregate their businesses' online presences, which was something that, things were getting jumbled up. So if there's a YouTube channel on which they're playing pranks, they're talking about their electronics, they're talking about their stock portfolio, and then they're talking about property selling. This was something which acted as more of as an entertainment rather than a business proposal, which was a big issue that we identified for them. This kind of content on the YouTube channels had the following, in which 99.9% of their followers and subscribers were the people in South Asia subcontinent from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, people who cannot afford the properties that they're selling. So that was one of the biggest things. So they're promoting their business to people who will enjoy what they see, who like what you have to offer, but they'll not be able to afford it. It's a big issue because that's not how businesses go. Always mentioned about target market segments, and I'm mentioning this again. You have to you have to target the market in a very precise manner. Your content, your strategy should be very precise when targeting your market segment, intended market segment. So this was one of the biggest things that they were going through, because the following, they can share your particular post or reel, but they simply cannot buy it. Apart from this, there was no reach to authentic buyers. There were some celebrities who tried to buy from them. Some of them actually succeeded in buying as well, which was a good thing. But that was a very small segment. And if they want to scale themselves and if they wanted to grow as a business, then they would need something bigger than this. And lastly, the language that they were using, they're using Urdu and slash Hindi. There's something that only targets people in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, which again limits their reach. Obviously, most of them, their following is from these areas, but then again, there's no point if these people cannot buy what you have to offer. So the language barrier was a big game. The following not being able to afford it was a big thing. And then again, the jumbled up idea, the jumbled up profile in terms of videos and content was a big thing as well, because they simply doesn't don't they simply cannot know what they're going to buy because they cannot see it properly in your profile. Okay, so now we'll come on to the second stage. This is where we identified more aspects in detail. We're critically analyzing the videos that were specifically regarding their property selling business, apartments and condos and other properties as well. So the biggest thing that we saw was that there is no mention of any kind in terms of the perceived benefit that a person will have when they buy their property. Why should they buy from them? This wasn't being targeted at all. And the second thing is that when they would create videos for their apartments and properties, they would not mention the location. They would not mention the points of parity, the unique selling points, the things that most of the people want to know. It's not just washroom and the bedroom, the master bedroom or the living room. It's a lot more than that. And apart from that, the properties were very generic, so they had to decorate them more in order to them being sold. Normally, what happens in real estate businesses is that they schedule an open house, and then they decorate the property in a way. They place additional decorations, they place additional aspects and items throughout the property, so that they add value to the consumers perceived benefit. So this wasn't the case in this particular this wasn't in this particular case. They had not done that as well. And there were people who had never it felt like they're people who have never done this business and they're new, and this is something that a customer would never trust when coming to a transaction as big as property investment. Okay, so they have not mentioned the investments properly. They've not mentioned the pricing plans properly. They're playing pranks on the property and then recording it. They're playing hide and seek and then recording it. And the biggest issue that we analyzed through research was that the currency, they would say 4 or 5 crores, but they would not mention whether they're talking in Indian rupees or whether they're talking in Pakistani rupees, which was a big turnoff for lots of buyers, because the Indians thought that this is a scam and the Pakistanis thought that this is good and they were going to buy it. But when they realized that the crore mentioned was in Indian rupee, it was a huge turnoff for them as well. So these are things that should be critically analyzed, and obviously their viewership is mixed of all these 3 or 4 countries. That's a big issue. So this was the second stage where they've not mentioned the details in any way, and which is bad. You're supposed to mention details. You can write them in the description. You can make a small transitional page and mention them at the end of your video. But what they're doing is, it's good for gaining attention and entertainment, but it's not good for doing business. Okay, so the third stage is where we have the standard SOPs for businesses, and when it came to SOPs, they had actually none of them were fulfilled. There was no website, no social media presence, no segregated presence. There was absolutely no effort in terms of SEO, in terms of online presence. There was no effort whatsoever in terms of building trust. You're going to have a big transaction taking place. You need to build trust, and this was something that they did not do, and which is bad. And I believe this is a lesson for all real estate sellers, that these are the things that you should do. Have an online presence, create an experience. If you want to create an experience, that's a good thing, but do it in a way which looks more elegant. And again, when you identify your target market, you have to sell them in a way which they like the most. These are not townhouses, these are not low cost model houses, these are premium condos and apartments. They should look like it. The experience should look like it. So this was something. There were no digital brochures. So actually, what happens in lots of ways is that what businesses do, even in a certain business that we work for in the United States, they used to do this. They used to create digital brochures, and they would share those brochures to their customers who would inquire about a certain property. This was a good thing because it had attractive visuals, it had all the details, it had and the whole FAQ section, which is a big thing because most of the questions were being answered by the brochure. And if there were some left, then the person would call and ask them. It would also save their time. At the same time, it would also build reach and trust. Now, on the fourth level, we have the critical analysis I mentioned before. This is a big thing because you need to critically analyze what your business is offering as a whole. Because when every single factor is combined, it is so not what you intend it to be. It becomes something entirely different. So in this particular case, what normal people see through research, we found out, and when we critically analyzed the data that we researched, the findings, what we saw was that a generic normal person would see, and if that person is an investor, or if he's or she is willing to purchase a property, what's happening is that they see a channel, they see two influencers who are good at playing pranks, who are good at entertaining people, but suddenly they have started to sell properties. They would try to look up for videos regarding their properties, but they have seen their properties, their videos over there, but there's no proper information, there's no proper point of access, there's no proper digital presence, there's absolutely no effort that is placed in being put in terms of SEO or online advertising. It's just, for them, it's just a set of generic videos in which two influencers are convincing people and investors to buy their properties, which is quite not the way these businesses are run. And if they want to grow, they would need to put in more effort. And a big thing was that pranks being played on the properties for sale was something that acted as a huge turnoff for the investors. We conducted a focus group, and they were like that this is so not how things go. If we didn't like it, we would never buy from them. And afterwards, when we asked them more questions, the biggest thing that we saw was that they were stereotyping these two influencers as a family vlogging influencer, which was a bad thing because they weren't family vlogging influencers, but they were being stereotyped as one because of the content that they were showing, which also gave us a big insight in terms of what kind of consumer behavior and psychographics people in this South Asian, the subcontinent, have nowadays. It was a big issue as well. They were being stereotyped in terms of that. So that was one another reason that the investor said that these people are not, you know, they don't look like professionals, so we won't buy from them. And the next thing was that they had to build this kind of trustworthiness, and we told them, we give them a big proposal for that as well, and it would cost them lots of money because they had to put lots of effort in a thing where no effort has been put in as of yet. So they need to build trust, they need to be trustworthy. And one of the big things that investors told us was the language barrier. Language barrier was one of the biggest things because they were like, you know, they're just talking in Urdu and Hindi. So that's a big thing because only those people can understand them. We cannot. So another big premium segment based on English and or French, potentially French or English language, is not there. We're not expecting them to speak in English or French, but they can afford to hire someone to create videos and speak in those native languages as well. It would just broaden the investment base. I'm damn sure that people in United States, United Kingdom, Australia, people who speak English, they'll be more than willing to buy from them when it comes to investing in a good property in UAE. Similarly, it goes for people in France as well. So that was a big thing as well, and the language barrier was something that they were supposed to work on. They needed to show more professionalism in their videos. It's not just laughter and showing lifestyle, and that not even in a proper manner. It's a lot more. You need to be elegant. If you're selling $1 million USD, a million USD dollar apartment, or a $500,000 apartment, you need to mention why it is good, what are the points of parity, what's going to be the ROI, what's going to be the ROE, what kind of returns it will give, how can it be utilized to earn more money, how can it work on Airbnb, things like that. It would attract investors and customers more. So we gave them a big proposal. They liked our proposal, and they've even opted for our services. They're working with us this current moment, and I'll be sharing a video regarding this in a coming year or so, because then we'll know the kind of progress that we've made. So this is about it. Thank you very much, and grow global with Aargard.